In this world, fate can take us to places we never imagined. But true love, it never truly gets lost. Today, I'll share with you the story of a little girl lost in the depths of life, rescued not by people, but by the kindness of animals. A story of pain, survival, and an unforgettable reunion after 20 long years. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will touch your heart. Where the ocean took her. Once upon a time, in a city where golden lights danced across polished streets and the air smelled of roses and rain, there lived a family that was known by everyone, not for their riches, though they were indeed immensely wealthy, but for their unmatched kindness. The Morellis were a beacon of generosity. If someone was hungry, they fed them. If someone was cold, they clothed them. And if someone felt invisible, they made sure the world saw them. The family consisted of Mr. Raphael Morelli, a well-known philanthropist, his wife, Celeste, a woman who never walked past a wounded animal without stopping, their two teenage sons, Luca and Elian, and the youngest of them all, Amara, a 6-year-old girl with eyes like morning dew and a laugh that could soften stone. People loved them, not out of envy for their wealth, but out of admiration for their grace. One bright spring morning, the family boarded their private plane for a vacation that had been long overdue. They planned to fly over the Atlantic, heading toward an island paradise. The skies were clear, the sea below calm, and everything seemed perfect. Until it wasn't. About halfway through their journey, an alarm went off. Smoke began to seep through the vents. Panic erupted inside the cabin. A malfunction in the engine had triggered a fire. The pilot yelled through the speakers that they needed to make an emergency water landing before the fire reached the fuel tank. The plane descended rapidly toward the ocean, and seconds before an explosion could tear through its shell, the family, along with the crew, jumped into the water. They had been flying low, which saved their lives. The impact with the ocean was brutal, but everyone survived. They clung to floating pieces of debris. Raphael managed to lash parts of the wreckage together, creating a raft that carried the family and 2 other survivors. As the waves rocked them back and forth, they counted heads, only to realize that Amara was missing. "She was with me," Celeste screamed, her voice cracking with terror. "She was holding my hand," but in the chaos, the small girl had been swept away by a strong current. They searched for hours, called her name until their throats bled. But there was no sign of Amara. With night approaching and the sea growing colder, Raphael had no choice but to lead the survivors toward the distant horizon, praying that help would find them. Meanwhile, far from the drifting raft, beneath the darkening sky, Amara floated unconscious in the waves. Her tiny body tossed like a leaf. And that was when the impossible happened. A massive shadow moved beneath her. A fish, larger than any seen by man, surfaced quietly. Its eyes were deep and full of something ancient, and something strangely gentle. With powerful strokes of its tail, the fish nudged Amara toward the nearest land it could sense, an uncharted coast hidden by fog and cliffs. The fish stayed beside her all night, until her fragile body touched the shore. Then it dove back into the deep, disappearing forever. The next morning, a group of villagers walking along the shore found her. She was bruised, cold, and barely breathing. They had no idea who she was or where she had come from. The wreckage from the plane had scattered in many directions, and survivors had been picked up by search teams on the other side of the island. By the time her family was rescued, they had been led far from where Amara had landed. For days, the girl didn't speak. When asked for her name, she simply whispered, "Mara." The rest was lost in the fog of trauma. No identification. No parents. And with no one coming forward, the villagers contacted authorities, who placed her in the nearest orphanage. It was a cold, gray building with windows that never opened all the way and doors that never closed gently. The other children came from harsh lives and harsh places, and the staff, overwhelmed and underpaid, didn't show much love. Mara went from silken sheets and storybooks to a single iron cot and silence. But even as her world grew darker, Mara never let go of one thing: her love for animals. Birds would perch by her window. Stray cats would sneak into her room. Even the grumpy dog that guarded the orphanage gate would wag its tail when she approached. It was as if the animals knew something about her, something she herself didn't remember. Every time she was given a meal, she would sneak pieces out in her pockets and share them with the creatures outside. When scolded or beaten for doing so, she'd simply say, "They're hungry too." Years passed. The other children got adopted, ran away, or disappeared into the world. Mara stayed, until one morning, the owner of the orphanage, a man who cared more for coins than kindness, caught her feeding a pair of shivering kittens behind the building. "Wasting food on pests," he barked. "Get out. You're not our problem anymore." And just like that, at 16, Mara was homeless. She wandered from alley to alley, town to town. She begged not for herself, but for the animals that followed her. Birds, cats, dogs, even a mischievous raccoon once. People began to notice this strange girl who slept under bridges but smiled like she had everything she needed. When she played a flute she had found, animals would gather around her. She taught them tricks, trained them gently, and before long, people would drop coins into a hat just to see the animal whisperer and her loyal friends perform. She used the money to feed the animals first. Only if something was left would she buy herself a little bread. She became a local legend. People spoke of her in whispers and wonder. They didn't know her name, only that she had a birthmark like a crescent moon on her left shoulder and eyes that seemed to remember every sorrow, yet still chose to smile. 20 years later, in a city not far from the shore where Amara had once been saved, the Morelli family was visiting on a humanitarian mission. They had rebuilt their fortune, but not their hearts. Celeste still lit a candle every night for her lost daughter. Raphael still paused at every child's laugh, his smile faltering. They had never stopped searching, but with time, even hope learns to whisper. They were walking through a crowded square when a small commotion caught their attention. "Look," Luca pointed, "an animal show." In the center of the square, a young woman stood, surrounded by birds, cats, and dogs. They danced, leapt, and twirled on command. But it was not the show that made Celeste stop, it was something deeper. There was something hauntingly familiar about the way the girl moved. The kindness in her eyes. The way she knelt beside a limping dog and kissed its paw. Then Celeste saw it. As the girl turned to thank the crowd, a gust of wind blew her loose shirt aside, revealing a birthmark on her shoulder. A crescent moon. Celeste's heart skipped. "Wait," she whispered, stepping forward. "What's your name?" The girl looked up. "They call me Mara." Tears filled Celeste's eyes. Do you remember anything? Your family? A plane crash?" The girl stiffened. Then slowly, as if pieces of a long-buried puzzle were clicking into place, she nodded. "I remember. Water. Fire. A voice calling my name. And a giant fish." Celeste was trembling. You had a doll named Lila. You couldn't sleep without her." The girl gasped. "How do you know that?" Celeste broke into sobs. "Because I'm your mother." The world spun. The animals grew silent. And in the middle of a busy square, a woman fell to her knees, clutching the daughter she had lost and found again. Raphael joined her, followed by the brothers who hadn't seen their baby sister in 2 decades. People gathered, unsure of what they were witnessing, but knowing they were seeing something sacred. Amara, was home. They took her in, gave her back everything she had lost. But she insisted that the animals come too. "They were my family when I had no one," she said. "They fed me with love when the world offered me none. And so, they stayed, with her forever." Amara never stopped performing. But now, she did it not for survival, but for joy. And beside her stood the people who had never stopped loving her, even in her absence. Moral: sometimes, the heart of an animal is warmer than that of a human. For in a world full of noise, cruelty, and forgetfulness, it is often the silent, gentle creatures who remind us what love truly means. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and share it with others. Your support means the world to me and keeps me going. Much love.